morning. As your member training committee chair, my name is Nikki Walker, and it's my pleasure to invite everybody here and say a warm welcome for joining us for JLP Elevate this morning. We are really excited about the program we have for you. Before we get started, there's just a few things that we want to share just to make sure that it's a really successful training. The first thing that we need to remind everybody, please make sure that your mic is muted until we reach the breakout rooms and the elevator pitch activity. Make sure your mic is muted all the way before that. The next thing we want to encourage you to do is to submit your questions to the chat. If you have any questions for any of our speakers, the subcommittee will be working through those to make sure that we get those out. But please make sure any questions you have go to the chat. Finally, just want to remind you that this training is being recorded. So today we are going to be starting here in just a moment with a fireside chat. We'll then take a short break. When we come back, we'll do an activity about perfecting your elevator pitch. And then we will conclude this training with a career panel. So it's my pleasure right now to hand off to our subcommittee member, Fran Al-Hadif. Fran, over to you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to be a part of this talk about women in leadership. For those of you who may or may not know, I work at Shutterfly, and this morning's guest speaker, we're so honored for her to be here, is the CEO of Shutterfly, and her name is Hilary Schneider. She's a highly educated, accomplished professional. She's graduated from Harvard and has over 20 plus years of experience. She's held multiple CEO and board positions. Hilary is a leader that believes in transparency and communication. And so I wanted to give you an example of what she does weekly for the employees at Shutterfly. So she literally has a weekly meeting with the employees, and there's over 15,000 of us. And in this meeting, she provides updates. She allows us to ask questions. And then her and her executive team actually answers those questions. So it's really, really cool to be a part of that every week. I don't know if you know this, but currently over 60% of Shutterfly employees are women. In addition to Hilary being the CEO, there are several members of the executive team, as well as board members that are female. Shutterfly is the leader and manufacturer of personalized products. I don't know if you've ever been on our website for Shutterfly, but there's some really, really cool products out there, as well as, it's not just Shutterfly, it's Tiny Prints, it's as well as Snapfish. And then we just acquired this cool company called Spoonflower, and they're doing home decor and wallpaper, we're really excited about that. So it is my honor and privilege to present Hilary Schneider. Hilary, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background?
Absolutely. And I apologize in advance. I have two large dogs that have decided to protect me at this moment. So the beauty of doing this from our homes. So I am thrilled to be here today. And I'm particularly relate to this audience because I grew up in Arizona. So born and raised in Tucson, proud graduate of Tucson High School. And my family all lives in the greater Phoenix area. So it's my hometown roots. I went to college on the East Coast, and I ended up staying on the East Coast for a while. I then went to graduate school on the East Coast and moved out to LA to be an investment banker, really working in mergers and acquisitions. And over time morphed into, first I did a lot of deals with media companies, and then I joined a media company first on the strategic planning and corporate development side. And then along the way, one of the executives asked me whether I wanted to try operating experience. And up until that point in time, I'd really thought of myself as a finance person. And when I went back to think about it, I was like, well, why not? Why don't I try it? And so it turned out that that was one of the best decisions I ever made, and took increasing operating roles in media companies, and media merged with the internet as the internet evolved. So that became my passion because I'm just curious and I wanted to understand what the internet was going to do for consumers and how that would change. And so over time, really morphed into consumer internet, and am thrilled to be the CEO at Shutterfly.
That's awesome. So next, what we're going to do is that we have some prepared questions for Hilary, and she's going to go and answer those questions for us. And then after that, we're going to open it all to you. Unfortunately, there's too many people on the call, so we can't unmute people to have people ask questions directly. So we're going to ask you guys to ask your questions in the Zoom meeting chat. And so you can start doing that now. If you have questions, you can start putting them in there, and then the team will filter those questions to me. So let's get started. So Hilary, since starting at Shutterfly in 2020 as the CEO, which accomplishments are you most proud of?
Gosh, so here's the interesting thing. I joined Shutterfly in January of 2020. And just as you all know, COVID really hit us in March of that year. So, I had just was beginning to get out to meet the company and to understand what was top of mind for the individuals. And the COVID environment, was really scary. The move to working from home was, at first felt really awkward, and now we've all become very adjusted to it. We had manufacturing we had to keep up and running in order to deliver. And what I'm most proud of is the way the entire company came together in, we had to make a lot of decisions quickly. They weren't always easy decisions, but I felt like the company came together from both a leadership at all levels to the employees who understood that we really were trying to navigate a tough environment in the best way possible. And I love the way that the companies embraced the idea of transparency and expecting that not only will we be transparent, but we'll do that in a way that is consistent with our values. And so really launching a set of values for the company that emphasize diversity, equity, and inclusion at the same time. And when I look at where we've come, is it perfect? No, but I feel like the company has prospered during this period, and we're now able to invest for growth in a much more accelerated manner.
That's great. The next question, what advice do you have to navigate new leadership roles? So, we made it to leadership, and we're asking the question of like, now what? Like, what advice do you have for someone that's new in leadership?
So here, I feel like I'm always new in leadership because I coach it as every day is a new day, and I can learn on a daily basis. And so I think as a new leader coming into it, the things I'd really emphasize are first, really get to understand your team. And understand what motivates them. We all come to our roles in life with life experiences. And the more you understand the folks on your team, where they want to go with their careers, and really taking their interest to heart, and understanding what excites them and what their challenges are. And you as a leader are there to help support them. I'd say that's number one. Number two, really understand your customer. So anything you can do to get closer to understanding the customer that you're ultimately trying to reach. And you may be a manager in which you're a support organization and your customer is a line organization, or you may be in a situation in which your customer is the end customer. But I think understanding what the customer needs are and what their desires are, and being able to connect the dots for your employees to what they can do to help the customer, that's a recipe for success.
That's awesome. As someone like you who has been a CEO 3 times now, what new challenges do you look for? What new challenges do you look for?
So let me tell you, I believe, and you know this, Fran, because you've heard me say it 1,000 times, but I believe feedback is a gift. And the reason, and I've now started to say feedback is a gift and an obligation, because if you hear feedback and you don't take action on it, you then lose the trust of your employee base. So before COVID, every day when I drove home, I would do this mental thing, and I now do it like I'm not driving, I'm just walking after work. But I say to myself, is today a win or a loss? And just in case you're nervous about what the answer will be, I'm an optimistic person. So I always say every day is a win, but that doesn't mean every day went perfectly. And so I reflect back on the times when I might have said something in jest, and that because of my positional power, somebody took it the wrong way, or where I could have been more positive in my approach to a situation, or the way in which, in retrospect, maybe I cut someone off in a meeting. And I take each of those as learning points to say, okay, sorry about that. I could have done better at that, but you know, I'm going to try not to make that mistake again tomorrow. So I feel like each day is that learning curve around how do I ultimately help get the right people in the company? How do I make sure we have the right values? And how do I make sure I'm setting the direction? And every day I don't get it right, but every day is a learning curve.
I like that. I think we can all learn from that philosophy, honestly. Speaking of philosophy, what is your, how do you foster opportunities to elevate other leaders? Now, these could be leaders that report to you, or they could be leaders that are within the organization. Like, how do you elevate them and, you know, and promote them up and encourage them?
So first of all, one of the things I'd say for all of you, and that it's taken me a long time in my career to get to, is that women often, including me over and over again, experience this imposter syndrome, which is, I can't believe I'm in this role. I don't know why anyone would believe anything I have to say. Like, why would someone listen to me? And I think in general, men do not experience that to the same degree that women experience that. So one of the things I really encourage this group to do is to feel comfortable when you think about elevation and where you want to go with your career, is reaching out. Like Fran reached out to me and asked me if I would do this, whether I would do this session. And I thought, you know, I am so happy that Fran reached out to me, because it gives me an opportunity to be in service to somebody in the organization. And if you don't ask, you're never going to get those resources. And it took me forever as a woman to, you know, every year when people would give me pay increases, I would think, wow, I'm so honored that they gave me a raise. And it didn't even occur to me to get proactive in terms of saying, no, I deserved more than that. And so, you know, I don't think I ever asked for more compensation until about 3 years ago.
Really?
That's how long it took me to have the confidence to do that. So one of the things I would say is be your own advocates. And then secondly, for me, what I try to do is, you know, we really have put together employee resource groups at the company. And we have a women in leadership group, and we really try to give tools to women in particular to help them as they're navigating their careers. I really spent a significant portion of my time doing skip levels and skip level meetings. So I have a commitment to meet with every one of my direct reports once a quarter, and skip. So their reports twice a year. And I learn so much in those conversations, and I'm always asking open-ended questions like, what are you excited about? What are you frustrated by? What hurdles can I help you with? What can I do differently, or what can my team do differently? And I think that through that, I'm able to give feedback to my team on where I see us dropping the ball. And I never give up the confidentiality of anything I heard in an interview, in a conversation, but I try to take the threads of what I'm hearing in order to provide feedback for my team on what we need to do to empower our employees.
I like that. Yeah. And I think that you do a great job of that in regards to really caring about what the employees think. You know, we did a survey this last couple of weeks, and Hilary literally reads every comment, which is pretty awesome.
I just finished it, and it was 6,800 comments.
Wow.
Get a lot of insight.
That's great. All right. So this is something that I think everybody experiences at the league. And I'm sure that you've experienced it as well. As women, we want it all, but, it's sometimes hard to juggle, your personal responsibilities, your parenting responsibilities and your career and all that. So how did you do that? Like, how did you juggle personal responsibilities as well as your career? And then did you have to make any sacrifices along the way? Because, sometimes as women, we have to pick and choose on the path that we're going to take in regards to our personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just as for context, I'm married. I've been married for 33 years. I met my husband in graduate school. We have 3 sons. They're now 24, 26, 28. My oldest just got engaged. So I feel like we're getting into the next stage of life. But I really think the idea of work-life balance, like forget that concept. There is no balance. I think of it much more as juggling, and you're constantly juggling balls. And the best
it's true
was you have to think about the fact that some of the balls you're juggling are glass, and if you drop them, they break and you can never get them back. Mm-hmm. And some of the balls are rubber, and if you drop them, they'll bounce. And the way I think about it is, in work life, there's never balance, because I could be on a sprint, like say we're making an acquisition and we have to work really hard to get the financing done and negotiate the deal and get the press and the comms all pulled together. So there might be a 2-week period where I'm working all the time. But after that 2-week period, then I know that I have to give time back to my family, that you can do it in a sprint, but you can't do it as a marathon. And one of the things I've learned along the way is my husband and I, met getting our MBAs. And so we've had to balance our careers. So we've moved around a lot. He's moved for me, I've moved for him. And we've had to balance that as we made decisions in order to keep the marriage happy. In addition to that, with the kids, one of the things that I found, and I've had to believe this as a working mom, so I do believe it, but I wonder how much of it is because of happenstance. But I believe that with parenting, it's not quantity of time, it's quality of time. So your kids will give you clues. I remember when I was working at Yahoo and I'd have dinner with the kids, and then we would have a half an hour of TV before they had to go to bed. And after dinner. And one day, my youngest son asked me, Mom, when you watch TV tonight, are you going to do it with your laptop or without your laptop? And that was like a big wake-up call to me. I was being physically present in that half an hour, but not mentally present. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to have my laptop with me for that half an hour because it means something to them. And so, when I think about it, can I make it to every sports activity they did? Absolutely not. Could I try to manage my schedules to make it to the ones that were the most important? Absolutely, yes. And so around picking those moments, and yes, you fail constantly. There are times when you will feel guilt at work, and you will feel guilt at home, and you feel like it's a no-win situation. But I look back on it and I feel like I love my family and I love my career. And while there's those moments that really feel horrible, at the end of the day, I'm really proud of the way it's worked out.
Yeah, I like that. The glass and the rubber balls, deciding on those is really important. All right. So this is a question that I think we all face because, like you said, we're juggling all these things and we feel stressed, we feel overwhelmed. And so the league is interested in hearing, like, do you ever feel overwhelmed? And what advice do you have to getting back on track? Is it a hike? Is it a run? Or is it meditating? You don't never seem overwhelmed to me, but I would love to hear your answer in regards to that.
I absolutely get overwhelmed. And some of the things I've learned about myself is, really getting to the point of understanding what makes you happy and the things you really like to do in life is important. And when I get overwhelmed, one of the things, early on in my career, I felt like I had to clear my desk every day and I had to clear my inbox every day. And the further up I moved in the organization, the more I realized, wow, it's impossible. Like I literally cannot do that anymore. And that really forces you to then think about prioritization. Like, what do I need to do? And what, if I don't get to it right away, isn't going to matter. And when I want to de-stress, the things I do are love my dogs, even though they will bark at inconvenient times. So, being with them on long walks makes me really happy. Big hiker, big road biker, anything outside makes me happy. Gardening makes me really happy. And I wasn't just a COVID gardener. I started early on and I love everything about my garden. And when I was, I don't know, my boys were probably 6, 8, and 10, we were going to Hawaii for the first time. And I get bored at the beach, and a girlfriend gave me knitting needles, yarn, and a booklet on how to knit. And that's how I learned how to knit. And I find that very repetitive. It's almost like yoga for my mind. So those are all my passions.
Yeah, with the knitting, you don't have to think, right? You just do, and it kind of decompresses you. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. And so what do you grow in your garden? Is it like a tomato? Is it a pepper?
Tomatoes are my favorite. And
Yeah, mine too.
I live in the Bay Area, and I found this woman who, her name is the Tomato Lady, and she has a farm in the Santa Cruz Mountain. She used to be a captive farm for a high-end restaurant. And so I drive 20 miles up into the hills and I get these little heirloom tomato seedlings. Mm-hmm. And tomato season's about over. So I'm about to transition to fall vegetables, which for us will be lettuces, broccoli, cauliflower. But I don't find the winter vegetables as fun as tomato season.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. All right. So the next question really interests me, so how did you position yourself to catapult your career to CEO? Like, did you make conscious decisions to say, okay, I'm at this level, and then a year from now, I want to be a director. And then a year from now, from that, I want to be a VP. And then was it strategic in your thinking, or did you just put yourself out there where you were presented with opportunities? Because nowadays it's not as easy. Like when you go for a job, they want you to know everything. When I started my career, they looked at me and they said, "Oh, you have potential. I'll give you a job. I'll give you that job, and you can, grow into it. You know what I'm saying?" And so how did you do it? What are the steps?
So I did not have a plan. In fact, when I look back at my career, I feel like I use the word serendipity, which is being in the right place at the right time. But I'd add that serendipity is being in the right place at the right time, and then being able to say, this is a great opportunity. So, and a great example would be, I had been doing corp dev and strategy work, and senior exec at the firm said, why don't you take on some operating experience? And I thought to myself, I don't know how to be an operator. Like, I've never even thought about how to be an operator. And even at business school, I ignored all of the classes about marketing and organizational design because I was sure I was going to be an investment banker my whole life. And so I thought about it for a night, and I came back with this idea of why not? Like, okay, I don't really know what it's going to look like, but if I don't try it, I'll never know. So why not do it? And I started in an operating position with one employee, and the CEO of that company came to me and said, Hilary, I'd like you to run a $200 million sales organization. And I'd never been on a sales call. And I, in my head, what was going through my mind was, I have no clue how to do that. And so, but my answer was, that sounds awesome. And then I walked out of the room and I called my husband and I said, I don't know why she asked me to do that. I have no clue what I'm doing. Like my first day on that job, I was, all these new employees and that were reporting to me, and they were scared, but I was more afraid than they were. Right. So
Right.
I think this idea of when opportunity presents itself, at an interview for my first CEO role, one of the board members asked me a question, and the question was, Hilary, do you think you're lucky? And I was really trying to figure out where that question was coming from. And I knew enough to say, yes, I'm lucky. What am I going to tell him? No, I'm not lucky. Who wants to hire an unlucky person?
Right.
But I couldn't really figure out what that question was coming from. And as I thought about it, I actually thought it was a really interesting question, because to some extent you make your own luck. You lean in and you experiment and you try things and you adjust. And I actually thought it was a really good question, which is, don't just stay in one swim lane. And I know some people they know exactly where they want to go. But for me, as opportunity presented itself, trying new things really opened up a lot of doors.
I like that. So don't look for those opportunities too. I'm sure that they present themselves and sometimes you don't realize it. So look for those as well. Yeah. All right. So this is the last question we have for the prepared questions. And then we're going to go on to the ones that we got in the chat. How would you describe your leadership style and how has it evolved? So I'm sure that you were one particular leader when you first started out in, executive management, and it's now morphed into something else. And we would like to hear that journey.
Yeah, I think, start off in the business world and you feel like, okay, if I'm a leader, I need to show up in a certain way. And you model your behavior based on leaders you've seen in the past. And the reality is the most effective leadership style for each of you is going to be your style, not someone else's style. And I think the biggest learning of my career as I've evolved in leadership is not feeling like you need to show up as the person who has all the answers, not feeling like you always have to be positive or the cheerleader. And
right. Yeah.
I think that the more authentically you show up and, share the way you're feeling, which is, hey, yeah, I'm anxious too. Like I've never been through something like the pandemic and I'm trying to figure it out. At the same time, we're all trying to figure it out. And, or if you've made a decision and you get the feedback that's the wrong decision, being willing to change it. I'll give you a great example at Shutterfly. We do this all company meeting and somebody asked me during COVID, because everybody was experiencing COVID burnout, could we give an extra holiday to the company last summer? And my off the cuff response was no, right? Like we have enough holidays in the calendar. Right. And then some employee who I've never met before at Life Touch in Minneapolis, a woman, sent me a heartfelt note about what her life has been like with young kids, a husband suffering from depression, having lost his job post-COVID, the unlimited hours, being hard to monitor when you start and end your day because there's no drive time. And I really thought about it. And I came back to my team and I said, I think I got that answer wrong at the snapshot. And my team said, well, Hilary, if you change your answer this week at the snapshot, won't we encourage people in the organization to think that if they argue with us that we'll change our mind? And I said, well, I'm not afraid of that, because if we got it wrong, let's own it and let's get it right. And so the next week we went on and we said, look, I got it wrong. And the answer is we all need a mental health day and we are going to do an extra holiday at the company. And, it's just a great example of, they don't have to be the big decisions, but just be in touch with, 80% of the decisions you make for any of us will be right, and 20% will be wrong, and just be willing to own it when you get it wrong.
I like that, because so many people don't own it. They're afraid to be vulnerable and afraid to, show that. So that is awesome. All right. So we have a bunch of questions in the chat. And so I'm going to ask this now. So it says, what advice do you have for how you can support other up and coming leaders?
So just be there for them. So, I would say when I moved from Baltimore to Silicon Valley, and there weren't very many women in executive roles in technology related companies. And what really struck me is, even though I was at Yahoo and my competitors were Google and Amazon and other companies, the other women executives reached out to me. And if they had questions or I had questions, they created a network for each other. And
smart.
I think that don't underestimate the role you play every day in calling out the people you work with who've gone above and beyond, taking the time to understand where you can help someone. When people ask, pay it forward. If you can help someone in something that matters to them, and help them solve that problem, you're giving a gift to someone that helps them. And even if it's just listening to someone, if they're having a moment, one of my best friends in life, when I joined the investment bank, it was all male. There was only one other female who was an associate with me. And I, at one point, went down to the third floor in the garage to cry because I'd been yelled at for the 5th time after pulling an all-nighter. And she was down there crying too. We hugged each other, and we've been best friends since then. And so, just be there for each other.
Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, so have you seen people who lead start to follow? Oh, sorry. Do you see people who lead start to follow your example about feedback and improvement and into their own leadership style? So I think they're trying to say is that, with your leaders, do they adapt your leadership style? Do you see that improving?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's two things. There's A, you set the tone from the top.
Mm-hmm.
B, as you build teams, one of my fundamental beliefs is a 0 asshole quotient. One bad apple will spoil the whole bunch. And so
it's true.
Really make sure that you don't have folks who have so much ego that they're not going to be adaptable. And then we as a leadership team with the company defined a set of values, and we really care about those values. We promote people against those values. We compensate against how people show up against the values. And so I think those things really matter in terms of how you get an organization to start all rowing in the same direction. And everyone's style won't be my style, but everyone starts getting committed to the idea of transparency and accepting feedback and not being reactionary towards it, but really looking at it as input.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, this is a good question. What do you consider a glass or a rubber ball?
That's a judgment call, right? I'll give you a perfect thing. If there's something that comes up, a way to think about that is what is a must to versus a nice to do. Okay. And what I mean by that on a work perspective is if I don't get back to this person today, is it fundamentally going to make a material difference for that person or for what we're trying to accomplish? Likewise with my kids, I would say I'm only as happy as my least happy child. And so and you have kids that go through their own crises at times. And, while if they're on even keel, I don't have to be there all the time. If I know one of them is struggling with depression or has anxiety about something coming up, I know I need to be there more for them, because that to me is a glass ball that, I don't ever want that child to have to experience that on their own.
Mm-hmm. It is about perspective and figuring out how to manage that. Definitely.
And your decision is going to be unique to you based on.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. So this one is, I like this one. So, women do limit themselves. I think you talked about this a little bit earlier, and they want to go for a job, right? That they might not, they might not believe in themselves that they're qualified for. And then you mentioned that you took the leap from a finance person to operations. So the question is do you have advice about how to sell ourselves for a position that is outside of our formal training or experience, if someone doesn't offer us an opportunity? So you got offered the opportunity. They're asking, like, how do we promote ourselves?
Absolutely. So, the way I think about this is that you should always be, in some sense, as you're communicating with people in the organization, you should always be letting people know what you're interested in and what you're curious about, because you never know when those dots will get connected in terms of, and don't be shy about that. The second thing I would say, when I was in business school, only 20% of the class was female. And I would sit down in the cafeteria, mostly with men. And I remember as we were, second year, and I would hear these men say things like, well, I'm only going to take a job if I think I can make more than $1 million by my fourth year out of business school. Or I'm only going to take a job if within 5 years, I think I could be CEO. And I'm listening to this, and my internal voice is saying, wow, I just hope someone gives me a job.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I think there's really something about that, which is, you won't get it if you don't ask for it. And so, and if someone says no, so what? Don't take it personally. And if you can get to the point where you put your hat in the ring, you go in and you give your best story, and you can get over the idea that if I don't get this, you label yourself, I'm a loser. Of course I didn't get it. All the voices in our head that sometimes stop you for going for that ask. I would say, feel better about having asked for it and not got it, not received it, than never have asked for it, and you'll never know. Like, if you don't ask, it may never happen.
That's true. You're living proof. You're here today. And that negative looping, sometimes we have to definitely get out of that. So I have a real life question. So we have a person on the call that is a new leader, and she's struggling with coaching a few employees with performance issues. So they're looking to see if they can get some tips on how to start to improve that process.
Yeah. So I think we all, particularly women, have this nurturing side, and we want to ensure that we bring everyone along with us. And so on coaching, I believe the best coaching is done on a continuous basis. You're not waiting for a coaching moment. You literally, in the moment, if I'm with someone in my team and they've just done something really great, or I love the way they showed up in a meeting, I tell them in the moment. Likewise, if I feel somebody reacted in a defensive way or a territorial way, or was snarky in a response, I call it out in the moment. And the best way to provide a feedback is not assuming intent, or it is just to say, hey, I noticed you said this. And when you said that, the way it made me feel was A, B, C, D. So that you're giving them feedback, and that continuous coaching on, hey, there's an opportunity. Oh, instead of the negative, put the coaching into the positive, which, there's an opportunity to handle it this way, and it might be more effective. And as an important corollary is not everyone's going to make it. And I can tell you that as you develop teams, really understanding when people aren't going to make it, I never want it to be a surprise to someone on the team if they're not going to make it. So giving them the direct feedback, which is, hey, I'm concerned we're not on the right path. And that if you don't make these changes, that, this may not be the right position for you. And then quantifying the goals you want them to achieve or the behaviors you want to see and staying on it. And then having the courage of your conviction to let people go if they're not going to be coachable for that role. And I can't tell you how many people I've let go that are still best friends for life because there was integrity in that process.
And they might not be, suitable for that role, but there could be another role that they are suitable for. And that being honest with them, I think allows them to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And helping them understand their own strengths and weaknesses can be a huge gift.
Yes. All right. So I can't believe it. We're out of time. So I'm going to do one more question, Hilary. How do you ensure the company values aren't just words? I think I know the answer to this question, but I want to hear your answer. Values aren't words on a wall, and that they are, they're being lived out within the organization.
It's a great question. And that's where I really believe you've got to be hearing what's happening in the company. So we do that. I've talked about the fact I do skip levels. I do skip levels. Twice a year, we do employee engagement results. We take them seriously in terms of understanding where we're creating friction for our employees and where we're not showing up against our values. And so, you're never going to get it perfectly right, but we incorporate it into everything we do. So when we talk about our accomplishments, we talk about it relative to the values. Our recognition is set up around our values. And, when we let people go, it's sometimes around our values, because if you can't live within our values, then you don't belong in our organization. And so I'd say it's work in progress, and you're never done with that work.
Well, Hilary, thank you so much for coming today. And we really do appreciate you answering all these questions. You were amazing. Thank you so much.
Big thank you to Fran for making the big asks for Hilary to join us today. I'm really proud of you as a member of our member training team. That was a huge risk. It was a very courageous question. And I think all of us on this call today are very grateful that you made that ask. So thank you, Fran, for that fantastic interview. And we are so grateful that Hilary was able to join us and share I wrote down so many nuggets of wisdom, things we definitely want to come back to. But at this point in the program, we are going to take a break. We're going to meet back here. It's about 7 minutes. So we're going to meet back at about 10:55. We will start right on the time there. And just a reminder that in order to get your credit for today, the leadership or the training credit, you do need to make sure that we stay on and attend the whole session. So thank you so much. We will see everybody back here at 10:55. So we are at time now. So just a couple quick reminders before we get started. And yes, let's go. So let's click over to the next. Oh, this does not want it really. There we are. So just a couple reminders about the training. Please make sure that you are muted right now. Any questions you have, please pop those in a chat. And I just want to say a real quick thank you to everybody who had submitted questions for Hilary. I am so sorry we did not have time to get through all of them, but I am very grateful that you had such thoughtful questions that I think really helped a lot of the ladies here learn a lot of things and get some new fresh perspectives. It is my pleasure to introduce Chrissy Henderson. Chrissy joined the Junior League in 2014. She served as the chair and vice chair of special events. She was a provisional member advisor. She's been on the management committee and on the community leadership outreach committee. Chrissy's a graduate of the 2019 AJLI, which is the Organizational Development of Institute, ODI, and she's also the recipient of the 2020 JLP Sandra Day O'Connor Award. Chrissy has so many accolades to her name, but I am so excited that she's going to share with us a bit more about perfecting your elevator pitch. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Chrissy.
Hey guys, thank you so much, Nikki. I appreciate that. It's awesome to be here today, and I'm really excited to talk about doing elevator pitches. And I don't know how familiar everybody is with what an elevator pitch is. So we'll start at the basics, and then we'll go from there and see what we can do with them. So what is an elevator pitch? Basically, it is a 30 seconds or less kind of pitch of who you are, what you do, why you matter, what you want. So they change. They absolutely change depending on the audience that you're talking to, and they change depending on the circumstance that you're in. So what I like about them is that I've been a government employee for 14 years. I am not in business. I don't sell widgets. I am not in consulting. Nobody needs to hire me to do anything cool and sexy, but elevator pitches are always appropriate for wherever you are. They're important when you're first starting to try and get a job, or if you have a few seconds with an important person that you're interested in learning some more information about, or even just really day-to-day stuff. You may find yourself on a first date and you're trying to sell yourself as to why you're a fun, interesting person. Or, you're on like a 18th date and you're meeting the parents and you have to explain to them who you are and why you're not a serial killer. And at the very heart of them, what's really cool about elevator pitches is that they remind you of your absolute badassery. Everybody here in Junior League has got some really cool, interesting stories and background and experiences and trainings and just neat things that they do and they know. And it kind of helps a little bit to remind yourself, like, you've come a long way. You're not fresh on this planet like a brand new person. You have seen things and you have done things, and there's so much interesting stuff that you bring to the table. So remind yourself when you're putting this together. Next slide. So what exactly goes into it? Basically, it's just, your name and who you are. If you've already gotten to that point in the conversation, it's your background and your skills. It's the reason why somebody should hire your company, or it's the reason why they should care about you, or what you bring to the table, where you've been, what you know, and what you're good at. But the important thing to focus on is that each time you do an elevator pitch, you want to think about what you want out of this contact. It may be that you're looking for a job. It may be that you're looking for a client. Or it could just be to remind somebody that you're important and that you bring stuff to the table. You may already work for this company and you're not necessarily applying for a new job, but if you've got the ear of the CEO for a few seconds, this is a chance for you to sell yourself about why, you're significant or you've got great ideas. Next slide. So what doesn't go into a pitch? This is not your hour-long speech about your amazingness. We all know plenty of people that love to talk about themselves ad nauseum, but this is not that time. This is mostly just catchy, quick, grab their attention, sell why you're a great person or what your thing is that you want to get across. And don't waste any time. What drives me absolutely nuts sometimes when you're talking to friends and they forget that you're not in their same industry, or they don't know what you do every day. And they say something like, well, Jenny dropped the ball on the Apex CLE. And so now at this point, we're DOA. And you're like, cool. Well, I don't know what any of that means. I don't know who Jenny is. I don't know what an A.CLE or APAC or any of that other stuff is. So I feel very confused and dumb right now. And either I will have to waste time asking you to repeat yourself and what all that stuff meant, or I'm just going to pretend like I know and not actually learn what you're trying to get across. So think about your audience and what they do or they don't know, and kind of cut to the chase and actually explain. Like, my friend Jenny, who I also have worked with for several years, is blah, 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 as opposed to just, well, Jenny. Don't ramble. Don't give long explanations. Just kind of get to it and explain who this is or what this is or why it matters real fast. And also don't worry. This doesn't have to be a memorized thing. We're not robots, and we're also not like actors on Broadway. So we're not presenting a monologue that's got to be really cool, and nobody's going to dock you if you say the word or if you stutter. It's just a matter of being natural and selling what is important to this particular topic. Next one. Okay, so why I'm stressing that it's got to be catchy is that you want them to care. and you want that person to pay attention to what you have to say. And if you're droning about how you learned back in the day that there are management techniques, you're really not going to sell why it is that you'd be a great manager or why your consulting company is great at training, because people are going to get bored. So think about who your audience is and ways to keep their attention. One of the big things is eye contact and expression. It's a little hard for me right now because I'm not actually seeing the people that are on Zoom. I know everybody's there and listening to various levels. So I'm trying to at least vary up my voice, maybe talk a little faster, talk a little bit slower, but I'm trying to get your attention somehow because I can't make eye contact right now. But I will mix up my expression a little bit to kind of reel you in. And I will do my best just from what I can do to try and keep your attention. Other techniques are starting with a hook or ending with a question. Sometimes you want to check in with a person to like make sure they're paying attention and say something maybe, off the cuff. I only know things, from my background. So kind of leading into what I do and have done for a living, I might start with something like, do you like true crime podcasts? Because everybody at this point likes true crime podcasts, except for me. And the reason that is because my background is in criminal prosecution. So I live it. So I absolutely will reel you in by talking about true crime podcasts. Or do you like CSI? Something like that. That's a hook. Ending with a question is a way to start like, so do you have those management problems? Or, hey, have you actually seen an issue with training? Or are your workers getting bored or not connected? Something like that. That's a way to get that person to then give you feedback on the stuff that you just gave them. And most importantly, whenever you're doing elevator pitches, is practice them. Sometimes it helps to bounce it off of an impartial person who already loves you, like mom. You can bounce your elevator pitch off your mom or any of your buddies in junior league. We're all here to support each other. So we're all here to like say, yeah, you did a great job. We're all here to say, hey, you are a badass. So it's one of those things that just practice, get used to it. Because the time you actually go to do it, it's going to be weird and awkward. And you're going to feel like, oh, did I sound strange? But if you practiced it at least a couple times with some friends, then oh my God, I should absolutely not say that. That comes out weird. So just let's get that out of the way first. So let's try next slide. All right. So I've got a couple examples and I pulled some from the internet and I pulled like some from other situations. And I want to remind you that, again, this is the kind of thing that can apply to a job interview or a client interview, or even just in casual conversation where you're trying to make a new friend. So for this one, this is one that I pulled off the internet, and this is a person that is actually trying to sell their product, their company, to a prospective client. So here it's, my company develops mobile applications that businesses use to train their staff remotely. This means that senior managers can spend time on other important tasks. Unlike other similar companies, we visit each organization to find out exactly what people need. This means that 95% of our clients are happy with their first version of their app. So how does your organization handle the training of new people? I mean, I think it's really polished. They do the end with a question. They didn't start with a hook or anything like that, but from reading this example, it's probably they've already had the beginnings of like, hi, I'm Joe Bob and my blah, 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 so they've at least like broken that ice. So not all of this is like, hey, you in the elevator, talk to me right now. Sometimes it's part of a conversation. Sometimes it truly is just you walk up to that total stranger. Let's try another one. So this one is, I thought about me. What do I do? And if I were just in a networking situation, maybe like with other lawyers, and they were curious to know what I did, I'd say something like, hi, I'm Chrissy. I'm an assistant attorney general, and I'm the lawyer for DPS. That's Arizona State Police. When someone decides that, like the state should really oversee safety related licensing, like for concealed weapons or regulating security guards, DPS is the one that handles that. And then when DPS has a question, they come see me. So my background is I was 6 years a prosecutor, and I spent 4 years as an administrative law judge. So my whole career has seemingly brought me right to this very moment. Basically, I love helping law enforcement help the community. And that would be an elevator pitch that applies to a person like me. So I'm not selling anything necessarily. I'm not looking for a new job. I'm just trying to explain to people what an assistant attorney general for the Department of Public Safety actually does, because no one really knows. I'm in a very weird specialized section and it's confusing. And I'm trying not to use too lofty, strange terminology that people have never heard before. Really, you're just presenting to everyday folk and trying to explain what you do. So how about another one? All right, so I tried to play with this one a little bit. There may be people in Junior League right now who have had a lot of great experiences doing volunteer stuff and that are finding that they want to move into a new line of work. So you can use a elevator pitch in order to try and parlay your Junior League experience into something new. Why not? That's what an elevator pitch does. So for this example, hi, my name's Jessie Junior Leaguer, and I'm the member training chairperson for the Junior League of Phoenix. JLP is an organization of women committed to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women, and to improving the community through effective action and leadership of trained volunteers. So as the training chair, I identify the skills that young potential leaders need, curate programs to help them grow, and provide it all to $0. So now I'm looking to take my skills to a new and exciting position. Would you like to take a look at my resume? So in this case, it's one of those things that you can really just customize it to whatever audience you're looking at. Sometime, and in this one, we ended with a question. We started with just kind of the basics. So it's not overly catchy. It's not overly technical or strange. You're just explaining what you are and what value you have, trying to get something out of the conversation. So how about the next one? Okay, so if you want to try it yourself, this is a great time to do it because we're surrounded by a bunch of other junior leaguers that are also learning and growing and want to advance in their fields. So to start off, I look at this like I'm going to trial because that's kind of what I did like in my background. I would think, how am I going to create an entire criminal prosecution trial? How am I going to like convey openings and closings and directs and crosses and all these things? It's so overwhelming. Okay, well, let's just start with what we want. So back in the day when I was looking to, get a guilty verdict, I would think, how do I get there? Well, I start with, I got to prove the elements of a crime. So I think I start with my closing. I start with the very end. Where do I want to go? I want you to understand that these elements are important. So it's kind of like a roadmap. And you start thinking like, I want to take a trip. Where do I want to go? Well, if I want to go to Australia, that's a huge difference from if I want to see my neighbor who is 2 doors down. So you got to think about what it takes to get to a place like Australia. What's your goal? So in this case, maybe you got to think about how to get there. How to get to Australia is you got to buy a plane ticket. And so if you're doing an elevator pitch where your goal is to get hired, you think, like, how am I going to get hired? Well, I got to present to them skills that they want. So every time you take a step back of like, how do I get there? So if my goal is to get hired, I think, what skills do I have that they would be interested in getting? And what skills are they interested in getting? Well, what kind of a company is it? What are they looking for? What do I know about this CEO, or what do I know about this HR person? What do I know about this industry that they find to be very important? So all along the way, you're thinking, what do I have? What are they looking for? And how does that match? So in this case, now we're thinking, I want to get to that company. That company values managerial experience, they value diversity, and they value confidence. I don't know, something like that. So you think about, well, I've had a lot of experience in Junior League member training. I've set up all these various trainings. I've attracted speakers. I've somehow done it with a budget of $0. These are important skills that this company would be interested in hearing about. So that's what you're going to put into your elevator pitch. So you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to introduce those skills that company is valuing. Maybe even a personal, specific thing about training, that's something that the company wants. So for me, again, I always think about like lawyer stuff, and I'm always just trying to explain what I do and why I care about it. And I'll talk your ear off. I'll go on forever and ever and ever, but try and keep it short. Like, hi, I'm Chrissy Henderson and I'm counsel for DPS. Or hi, I'm Chrissy Henderson and I'm an administrative law judge. an administrative law judge is somebody that presides over civil license suspensions. So like DUIs, basically we keep the community safe because we're making sure that even if a person doesn't go through the criminal process in a DUI, they still do have to pay the piper when it comes to license suspensions, because as a society, we don't want drunk drivers on the road. So that's what I did as an administrative law judge. These are just kind of like quick little tidbits about what you do, why it's interesting, and why it applies to the person you're talking to. So how about the next slide? So before we get to breakout time, I see there's a question. What suggestions do you have someone for changing fields entirely? I would say let's roadmap it. Think, what field do you want to go into? So again, like, are we going to Australia, or are we going to Tucson, or are we going to our next door neighbor? If you're going to Australia, it's a bigger trip. It's if you're going to a field that has nothing to do with what you do. If I've decided I want to go be a civil engineer, for example, I think then I got to think, what do I need to become a civil engineer? Well, maybe I need to get a little bit more education, or heck, maybe my degree is already in engineering and I can use that at this point. Well, I think about, my goal is to get that job. So I got to think, what do I have in my pocket that would be interesting to that person? And so you got to research where you're trying to go and also what you currently have to offer. And that may take some time of brainstorming, that may be talking to your friend, that may be looking at your resume. But you got to think about what they want and what you have to offer. And that's what you do in the quick little elevator pitch. Okay, so I'm thinking, like, at this point, let's break out. Is that okay, Nikki?
Yeah,
okay.
We're going to be, basically we have it set up that you're going to be in rooms of 3 to 4 people, and you're going to have an opportunity for the next 5 to 6 minutes to bounce your ideas off of the other ladies in the room. So I am going to encourage everybody, once you get into your rooms, turn your cameras on, turn your mics on so that you can talk and engage with each other. This is a great time to ask questions, try things out, bounce ideas off of each other. And then we'll pull everybody back. If there's any brave volunteers who want to share or get feedback, you'll have that opportunity for just a few minutes. But this is really about time for you to go and develop, ask questions, try something out, and get feedback from the group. Anything you want to add, Chrissy?
No, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Fran, if you can send us everybody to breakout rooms. We'll see you all back in about 6 minutes. Okay.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Chrissy, if you want to hear a few examples, we have time if we've got any brave souls who want to share.
Yeah, is there anybody in the audience who would be willing to do a quick little elevator pitch?
I can go. I put some notes down here for my elevator pitch. Hi, my name is Virginia Bajents. I am a supply chain contract manager for Intel. My role, we negotiate and sign and execute contracts for our trade partners to help build state-of-the-art microprocessor factories. And with my 9 years of experience at Intel, specifically 6 in construction, I'm excited to gain new project manager skills with this new potential position. Would you like a copy of my resume? Not that I'm looking for a job, but that was my pitch for if I were to get a new job.
Awesome. I feel like I know a lot more about you. Virginia, have you reviewed a lot of contracts in your experience?
I've been doing this for a year. So I'm starting to get a lot more contract savvy, but when I first started, I was not.
Because I was thinking we could even punch it up a little bit more. What are you best at your job? Are you great at doing those contracts?
What am I best at? I think what I'm best at my job is understanding my customer and the construction needs, because I came from the actual side of like defining the scope, and now I'm switching into the like contract management of it.
Awesome. Then I might start with something like, hi, I'm Virginia and I am the customer whisperer. I mean, you know what? Sell yourself and hook it. Like, it's one of those things. It's, even if it's kind of a silly thing to say, you laughed, and in that case, it makes you a little bit more memorable. And so just jump with those things that keep your attention. Like, hey, do you watch CSI? Or, hey, I'm Virginia. I am the customer whisperer. Like if you need somebody who needs to understand the customer needs, I'm your girl. And I feel like you are. Like it sounds like you've had enough experience that you are the person that is going to be able to pick out exactly what's necessary for this situation. Cool. Anybody else?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Davino. I'm a CPA, a finance professional, and I work in regulatory broker dealers. I recently moved to Arizona from Scottsdale, and I'm working remote. Not sure if that will continue. I also teach bookkeeping certificate program for a university in New York that just kind of fell into my lap due to some COVID opportunities. It's a remote course. So by day, I'm an examiner. I teach bookkeeping at night. I also am a certified divorce financial analyst, kind of random, but not super random because I'm divorced. And I had worked for a registered investment advisory with a divorce niche. And I hope down the road to obtain my CFP, Certified Financial Planner designation. I took that exam and I was unsuccessful, but it's on my bucket list. And I aspire to get into financial planning as the next leg of my career.
Great. You could even end with, do you need financial help? Do you need to figure out your finances? Or are you lost in finance hell right now? Like things like that, just a kind of a hooky way to like see if this is the person that you want to be talking to, and if they want a person like you. You could start with that. You could end with that. Just something, a reason why a person wants your skills, because it sounds like you understand finances, kind of just the beginning, the middle, and the end. And you are absolutely the person that we all want to hear. So just start with something like, oh, finances got you down. I mean, you know, something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And great job.
Yeah, and people are, I should put this in there. Women and people are scared of finance and money, and it shouldn't be scary. Just understand it, work within it, and you know, take charge of your situation.
I love that. You could say, and I make finances not scary.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, just always think about like, how can I make the little tagline that makes me memorable and that makes me stand out from every other person that's going to hear the same boring speech from everybody else. In this case, you've got people who make finances not scary. You've got people who are customer whisperers. It's just a way for you to stand out in the crowd. And that's what you're going to do in that punchy little 30 seconds. I think I have my email address at the very end. I'm also in the Junior League member directory. If you guys want to reach out to me, feel free. I'm happy to talk about this more. I'm always happy to talk about myself more too. But that's just my personality. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time and good luck. And remind yourself, you are a badass.
Well, thank you so much, Chrissy. Everybody, she's right. You all are badasses. I hope you've gotten a lot of little tidbits. I hope it was helpful to bounce some ideas off of your fellow breakout room members. And I really want to say a big thank you to Virginia and Suzanne for being brave and sharing their pitches with us and getting some more feedback from Chrissy. So well done to everybody. So we are going to move on now. And the final portion of our training today, I'm so excited about. We are going to do a careers panel. We have 3 HR specialists here for you today, all with very different backgrounds, very different experiences. And our purpose and our goal is going to look at how you can elevate your opportunities, how you can leverage your JLP experience, and just open more doors for you, whether that be within your career, pivoting to a different type of career, going for promotion, or even within the JLP or other, looking at other leadership opportunities. So it's my pleasure to introduce the following 3 rock stars to you. First, we have Liz Goldstein. Liz currently serves as the Executive Vice President, and she joined the Junior League of Phoenix back in January 2016 after she transferred from the city of New York. Throughout her junior league career, she has served in numerous leadership positions. She's been the social assistant, the social coordinator, provisional advisor, membership vice president. She also started 2 affinity groups for the JLP, the JLP Book Club and JLP Moviegoers. Elizabeth attended the AJLI ODI, so the Association of the Junior Leagues International Organizational Development Institute, in 2017, and she received the Mary Harriman Award in 2018 for her long-lasting impact on the JLP. So we're very excited to have Liz with us. We are also very excited to have Ginny Moore-Leon with us. Ginny joins us from Shutterfly, where she's a technical recruiter. She recruits for roles across engineering, product, analytics, and program management. Before specializing in tech, she filled roles across all corporate teams, including marketing, merchandising, and finance. Ginny has also worked in digital marketing at Bloomberg Business Week and Resolution Media, Omnicom agency. Prior to that, Ginny was an actor and a singer in New York and Chicago, appearing off Broadway and in commercials. So she definitely knows about pivoting careers. As a former career switcher and stay-at-home mom, Ginny has a passion helping women throughout similar journeys. She's a graduate of the University of Michigan, where she's lived as an expat in Hong Kong and is now continuing adventures as a Bay Area mother to 2 energetic boys and a baby girl. So we're excited to welcome Ginny. And then a third member of our panel is Kathy Comer. Kathy has been an active member of the JLP since 2002, and she recently completed a 2-year term as the JLP president. Her previous roles include President-elect, Secretary, Finance VP-elect, Finance VP, and Nominating Committee. Kathy has over 10 years of accounting and human resources management experience, in addition to 20 years of professional recruiting experience. Kathy has worked in entertainment, information technology, business process outsourcing, financial services, and staff industries prior to working in the transportation and logistics industry. I am so excited. We have 3 powerhouses with us today. So I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. We're going to go very similarly to how we did with the interview with Hilary this morning. Questions that you have, please put them in the chat. I have some prepared questions for these ladies, and then we will pull to the chat to make sure that your questions also get answered. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Kathy. First of all, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. So you are in a very interesting position as a past JLP president and somebody who specializes in talent acquisition. What advice do you have for our members who are looking to leverage their JLP experiences?
First of all, you want to make sure that you include it on your resume. If you've served on the board and in a leadership position on the management team, I actually have mine listed as one of my jobs, not just information down at the bottom. The other thing I would say is have multiple resumes depending upon what you're looking for. So when I was going through and looking for work, I had 3 different resumes. One was for if I was looking for a role that focused on accounting and finance. One was if I was looking for a role in talent acquisition. And one was if I was looking for a role in nonprofit management. So it's okay to have multiple resumes that highlight those different areas, that have a different summary, that have your nonprofit experience highlighted stronger than your regular business experience. It just depends on what it is that you're targeting. So it's kind of like know your target audience, right? So have whatever you're targeting, make sure your resume is also targeting that.
So just a quick question off of that. You've mentioned jobs and experience. And I know that's something that pops up a lot is ladies are putting their resumes together. Do they list it all as jobs or do they list it as experience? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So as a recruiter, I personally prefer a chronological resume than a skills resume. You can certainly present both, but you want to keep in mind that your resume is there to get you the interview, not necessarily get you the job. And as a recruiter, if I'm looking at a resume, your resume is only getting viewed for maybe 60 seconds, and Ginny can probably confirm that. But when you're going through 100 resumes looking for what you're looking for, you're quickly glancing through to see what skills somebody has and if they have the experience that you're looking for. And if I see a resume and it doesn't have dates on it, the first thing that I'm looking at is, what are you trying to hide? Where are the gaps that you're trying to hide? So I prefer, for me, a chronological resume. And then, if you haven't held a board position like for me as president, I put that on there because that to me, that was like a second full-time job. When you're leading a 1,000-member organization, I put it on there as a full-on job, and I just listed it as it was a volunteer opportunity. It was an unpaid position. I also have down towards the bottom of my resume, my other affiliations and service. And so it'll, before I was president, I had down at the bottom that I was a member of the Junior League of Phoenix, and I listed a few of my positions that I had held in leadership there. But once I got to that board level where it was a second full-time job, I just listed it out as a regular position. And if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I think I still have it up there as a regular position as well. So I would say, for your resume, you also don't want to just regurgitate a job description on your resume. You want to have things that you can highlight that are your accomplishments, because I can read a job description, or if you're working as, an accounts payable clerk, I know what an accounts payable clerk does, right? If you're listed, if you're a recruiter, I have an idea what you're doing as a recruiter, but what I want to know more about is what were your accomplishments? What made you stand out in that position? And so I always am looking for you to quantify your experience. And that's one of the things that I had listed on the tips page that you're going to share in a little bit, but you want to quantify all of your experience. So if you led a team, how many people were you leading? How big was your organization? If you managed a budget, what was the size of your budget that you were managing? Always quantify as much as you can on your resume. And you want to make sure that you have keywords on there that if somebody's going out and searching for somebody that has the skills that they're looking for, what are those keywords that I'm going to search for if I'm looking for somebody that is going to be a senior recruiter on my team? I want to see that you've done sourcing. So make sure that you've got those keywords. You can also go out and look at some of the job descriptions of the roles that you're interested in, and then make sure that your resume is highlighting those specific skills and those keywords. So, there's managers out there that might just be looking in accounting for somebody that's used Oracle Financials. So make sure it's on there, right? Things that people are going to search for when they're looking for people. And you want to make sure, another big thing that drives me crazy on resumes is people that still put an objective. I always advise people never put an objective on your resume, because if your objective does not align with the objective that they're hiring for, you've just eliminated yourself when you probably shouldn't have needed to be eliminated, but they're seeing that your objective doesn't align. So I prefer that somebody list a summary of their professional skills and experience than to list an objective. Objective is kind of old school, in my opinion.
So many great tidbits there. And I will come back to the slides that you provided as well, that have got some more feedback. Oh gosh, so much to dig into. I will come back to it. So I want to go to Ginny next. First of all, Ginny, thank you so much for joining us today. The first question I want to ask you is about the gap, and you've had that, you've experienced that, and you also do recruiting as well. So what advice do you have for women who might be getting back into the workforce after there's been a gap?
Yeah, I actually recruited Fran, who had a volunteer on her resume. And when I saw her resume having that experience that I have that you mentioned, I get really excited. I'm very pro women, bringing women back to work when they're ready. And like Fran had on her resume, and you just mentioned, Kathy, having a volunteer position there to fill in the space, and showing that you're doing something proactive is always really helpful. If you're trying to break into something like I was, that's also not only a gap, but also a career pivot, I have some recommendations there, which is network. Take classes where you can, if it's LinkedIn Learning, if it's Udemy, if it's GA, General Assembly, but also be open to maybe working for something very small. Maybe be the entrepreneur, be the founder, or find a founder that's got something very small going on that you can help out and kind of use the skills you already have, but also pivot into the skills that you want to have. And then you can have that on your resume as well when you're going to look for maybe something that is more scalable. And then don't be afraid of contracts if you're also coming in off from a gap, or if you're coming off or a career switch. I actually started as a contractor at Shutterfly, and I'm now full-time. I started as a temp to a contractor to full-time when I went from Business Week, and then Bloomberg acquired. So once you get your foot in the door, you can prove yourself after that.
So we're networking.
Yes.
We're looking for other opportunities where you can kind of get those skills, or at least go in the same direction. If it's not that exact career or exact job, it's, you were talking about different classes you can take. It's stuff that helps move you in that direction. It shows that you're being very proactive, which echoes what Kathy's talking about too. And I'm also hearing bits from what Hilary said this morning about look for those opportunities. If you don't see it, go create it. Go find something, start it yourself, so that there are opportunities there. You've just got to be proactive about it. So
and don't be afraid to network with anyone. I actually was networking I was taking beginner tennis lessons, and that is how I found Shutterfly, through someone who had been a recruiter there. So it is not a detriment. Sometimes I think we feel like if we're looking for a job, that must mean there's something sort of wrong with us because we don't have one right now. And it's not something to be ashamed of. In fact, tell everyone, and you never know who's going to be that connection.
That's such a good point. I'm coming back to you as well, but I want to go over to Liz really quickly. Liz has just done an incredible thing. She's done a total career pivot as well. Liz, can you share with us just a little bit about that recent experience, and what kind of challenges did you face on the way?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share. And I just want to reiterate what Jenny said about networking. The majority of my jobs I've gotten that interview because someone at that company has helped me. So even if it's not someone I know directly, I know someone who knows someone, or sometimes even messaging on LinkedIn and just introducing yourself can help, especially if you have a mutual connection. And I'm also just want to remind everyone that you need to be your biggest advocate. So the worst thing that happens is that they don't answer you. And so that's just my experience. But I did a complete career pivot. I have a background in sponsorship in sports and entertainment. So completely different. Obviously with the pandemic, that was an industry that suffered incredibly. And I was the victim of that because I was in the middle of a job change last March to go back into events, and that didn't happen. And so I had to completely reinvent myself. So what I ended up deciding to do was that I needed to do something more essential, something that was meaningful and something that would hopefully be a little bit more recession proof. And so I ended up deciding to go to grad school, and I applied to get my master's in healthcare administration, which was taking the skills I already had and just changing that industry, right? And so when I was looking at what opportunities were essential, who was still hiring, where I thought there was potential to make the kind of money and the growth opportunities long-term that I wanted, my skills and my interests aligned most with that. And so I started grad school, and then I have really been networking. And my goal with grad school was to pivot into a hospital setting. And so that was my goal when the 2 years was up. However, due to networking and just being proactive in trying to find out how to go ahead and get volunteer experience in a hospital or how to pivot into a hospital, I ended up stumbling across an opportunity to apply for a position with Banner. And so one thing that I was able to do in that interview process, because it was transitioning to HR. And like I said, I have a sponsorship and marketing background, so I don't have an HR background, but a lot of those skill sets that you need for that are things I've actually done in junior league. And so what I was able to do is I was able to say, I've managed the operations of a league that has 1,000 members, $500,000 operating budget, that I have managed, so like member issues, which can be equated to like HR issues, right? So you take those questions and you're able to then use your junior league skills to answer them. But you also want to make sure that people know that junior league is legit, right? That it's not just you and your friend having a lemonade stand down the corner. So that's when you use that information on the fact that we have a $500,000 operating budget, that we have 1,000 members, that we host, a rummage event that grosses over 140,000 on average. So you want to take whatever committee you're in, and you want to take those numbers, those financials that you would normally put in a resume, and you want to use what you're getting in junior league and being able to speak to that. Another thing that I think is really important is you don't have to be in a leadership position to develop these skills. So for example, I am terrified of public speaking. I hate it. Through junior league, I have overcome that fear. And so one thing that I would say is that if you're on a committee and you want to develop those skills, but maybe you're not a chair, you can still do that. Like, ask your chair, hey, can I be the one to speak at the general member meeting? Or, hey, can I present on this panel? Like, show that that's a skill you're wanting to gain. And then you can use that in your resume or in your interview saying, hey, I have presented in front of 200 people or 150 people or however many that is, so that you're developing those skills and then you're quantifying it.
That's awesome. And what I'm hearing from all of you is the specifics, whether it's like the Oracle, like the different programs you've done, or, you've basically grounded, it's 1,000 members. We've done 20 hours of training offered. And, it's actually giving that context, which is excellent. So my next question is for Ginny and Kathy. And we've talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. And we know that on average, and I know I'm generalizing, but men are more likely to go for a job. They might meet half the criteria. They're like, let's go. Whereas by and large, many women wait until they can check every single box before they go. What advice do you have for our members about what they can do to have the best chance possible in going for a job where it's in the direction they want to go, but they may not check every box on what you've asked them for on a job description?
I'll start. Nobody has all the boxes checked. No one.
That's good to know.
And you're right. Women will hesitate and not apply, whereas a man who will go in overconfident and be like, I can do anything. Right. And so I always advise women, regardless of if you meet every qualification or not, if you meet let's say the top 3 that are listed, you want to apply. Because typically the requirements that are listed, the top 3 are probably the most important. And if you apply, you have the opportunity to sell yourself and for them to, look deeper. If you don't apply, you have no chance, right? Like you have to at least be at the table to be asked to stay for dinner, right? Like if you're not applying to it and you don't have the confidence that you can do it and that you meet most of those qualifications, you're never going to have the opportunity to interview. But if you apply, now at least I might see something on that resume that stands out to me. Also keep in mind, a lot of companies that are focused on DE&I will make sure, like I want to make sure for a director level position, I might have 10 men that apply that meet all the qualifications, and I might have 1 woman that meets 75% of the qualifications. I'm going to make sure I screen that 1 woman and get them presented, because I need to have a diverse candidate pool when I'm submitting to my managers. I do not want to submit just, 10 white males that meet the qualifications. I want diversity when I'm presenting my candidates. So you might get the opportunity to be phone screened or interviewed simply because you check one of those boxes as a diverse candidate. Take advantage of that and then go in there with confidence, because if you're not confident in your skills, you're not going to get past the recruiter phone screen.
That's true. Jenny, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was all great. And I definitely agree with everything Kathy said. I think that you definitely don't have to check every box. I would even go so far as saying that sometimes the job descriptions that are posted, they've been vetted, but they're historical job descriptions. And maybe even there's a bullet on there that isn't even totally relevant for this role. I mean, we hate for that to happen, but everybody's busy right now, right? And they're not necessarily saying, oh, I actually really don't need that as much. So it's more what I have the conversation with the hiring manager before I meet with any candidates. And that's where I find out what's really important. And that's what I'm looking for. You kind of behoove yourself, like Kathy said, having 2 different resumes or changing your resume up a little bit to match what exactly is on the job description, if you have the time for that role that you really want, just because sometimes recruiters and hiring managers aren't that creative and they want to see that exact title on there. So you could put that sort of in parentheses if your title matches, but it was called something different at your company. And then the little tactical boxes are not as important as the big strategic look. Can this person jump into this role and take initiative and own it? And maybe they don't have all of the tool sets and they don't have the actual platform we use, but they use this and it's similar enough. Or actually what we're looking for is someone strategic anyway, and we want them to take next level. And so we don't need actually all of these tactical things. What we need is the strategic big picture. So it really depends. Do not sell yourself short. I look at every resume and I, especially like Kathy said, I'm really pulling for women and I'm really excited to get them in front of the hiring manager.
That's really helpful to hear. And I like that point of, we don't know what you as recruiters are looking for, because this person has to fit that puzzle piece within that team, within that organization. There may be room to train them up in a certain area if they've got, they know a similar skill. Well, then they've got the strategy they need. So one of the questions we've had come in from the chat, and if anybody can answer this one, how should the cover letter be different from the resume? What information, just so you're not just regurgitating the same stuff, how do you recommend that people navigate that?
I think what Kathy said with having a summary at the top, and let me know, Kathy, how you feel, that sort of takes the place of a cover letter these days. Not a lot of people do cover letters, and it's a little bit clunky. It depends on kind of the platform you're using to how well you can even see that separate application. So kind of put a shorter version of a cover letter at the top of your resume that highlights your skills and kind of what you're looking for, not in an objective, old school sort of way, but kind of, where you've been and where you kind of, your trajectory expects to go next. And that's kind of a space where you can highlight like the elevator pitch and kind of what makes you unique and why you're an asset.
I would agree. And I would say, unless the application asks for a cover letter, don't waste your time, because as recruiters, we're not rating them. Now, if the application asks for it, you definitely want to have it, because you don't, if it says they want your resume, cover letter, and, whatever, you want to include whatever they're asking for. But if they don't ask for it, it's not needed. You can certainly, have one ready to go. But again, with cover letters, when I was looking for work, if they asked for a cover letter, I made sure that it was specific to that job. You don't want a form cover letter. And typically what I would do on my cover letter was I had a paragraph in there that said, your job description says you're looking for, and I'd list 3 bulleted items or 4 bulleted items. And then I would list, like in column format, you asked for this. This is how I meet that qualification. So if it's saying they want somebody that has, a degree and X number of years of leadership experience, I might say, I have my bachelor's degree in accounting and 20 plus years of talent acquisition management experience. So I would always kind of make sure that they could see exactly how I'm fitting those requirements. But again, if they didn't ask for it, I'm not providing it.
No. So I've got a question here for all 3 of you. Liz, I'm going to start with you. Okay, we've had a success. We've sent off the resume. It's been screened by our HR team. They're like, yes, we want to learn more. What advice do you have for acing the interview? And I know there's different levels of interview, and when you interview with different people, there's different things to consider. But what advice do you have for somebody who's going into an interview, might be a little bit nervous, but really wants this job?
So I would definitely do my research on the organization, not only the organization, but the people that you are interviewing with. So usually you can look them up on LinkedIn. You can see if you have anyone in common. You can see their background. You can see what they've been, what kind of roles they've been in. And then usually you just need to set your SMART goals to make sure that when you are answering the questions, that you're concise, that you say what you did, what the outcomes were. I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that you can use your volunteer experience through Junior League or through another organization you're involved with, but make sure that when you're using it, you're quantifying it, and that you are letting them know that this organization is big and it's robust and it makes an impact, because you don't want them to discredit it thinking that it's something that isn't as impactful or large as it is. And I think it's also going back to what skills are you wanting to develop, and, you know, being confident, and confidence comes from practice.
Good point. Ginny, how do we ace that interview at Shutterfly? What do we do?
Yeah, great. Well, this kind of goes for general. Some companies have that behavioral interview questions. Tell me a time when. And so I think Liz, you mentioned the SMART method. I'm thinking the STAR method too, where you've got, you know, the situation, task, and so forth. Think of, you know, 5 great examples that you can use for that can kind of be pivoted into different questions. Also, if you're the type of person that gets nervous, comes from my acting days. See, my skills are transferable here. This is what I used to tell my voice students. If you're the type of person that gets nervous, nerves are actually a selfish energy, which we hate to hear. Nobody wants to be selfish. The reason why we're nervous is because we want to connect and we want to impress. So instead of feeling, you know, that you need to make an impression, try to make that person feel welcome. And that will take you out of that element of worrying about yourself, and it will help the connection. So sort of in your head, you could say, welcome to my home. Welcome. Would you like a glass of water? Would you like a cup of tea? Something like that, to set yourself up before the interview that, you know, you're connecting, but you're not trying to look desperate. And sometimes I think that can kind of come across that way. So those are my tips. Yeah.
No, those are great. And Kathy, I know you've shared a couple of slides with us. I'm going to go to those quickly, if that's okay. If you can just talk us through, or any extra tips, and this will get shared out to everybody, so you don't.
Yeah, and we've really gone over the resume tips already. The only thing I didn't mention was that, you know, make sure it's easy to read, that you have enough white space on it, and that there's no crazy fonts, and it's not in, like, you know, 6-point font. So that covers that slide. But the next one kind of touches on what Ginny mentioned about the STAR method of interviewing with behavioral questions. You always want to make sure you've got this, when they ask you a question, you want to make sure you're giving them what the situation was, what task you were working, you know, trying to accomplish, what the action was that you took, not, you know, make sure it's personal. It's not, well, what we did was this. No, I want to know what you did. I'm interviewing you, not your team. And then make sure you give what the end result was. I can't tell you how many times people will go through and give you a whole story and scenario, and they don't give you the end result. I'm like, and so what happened? Like, you want the ending of the story, right? So I would say this is the best way to answer those behavioral questions. And the question that I usually get is, how do I prepare for those behavioral questions? How do I know what scenarios to think of and come up with? And especially if you're new to interviewing or you haven't done it in a long time, the best thing I can say is go back to the job description and look for what are the things that they're looking for. What are the competencies? Read through the lines, right? And then when you have that job description, go out and Google behavioral questions for, and whatever that behavior is. So, you know, when I started doing a lot of recruiting for sales, I went out and I Googled behavioral questions for sales roles, behavioral questions for money motivated, behavioral questions for self-motivated, whatever the thing is. There's thousands of them out there. Read what those questions are, and then think, okay, what if they asked me that, what scenario can I give that's going to be covering that behavior, right? You always, and when they ask you the question, don't feel like you have to immediately start talking. Think to yourself, what behavior are they trying to get to? Because they're asking you to give a situation, but they're not telling you, tell me about a time when you were resourceful. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with conflict. They're asking you to give you a situation, but they're not telling you the exact behavior. You've got to determine what is that behavior so that you can make sure your answer and that STAR format is covering what behavior they're looking for. It's read between the lines. And then, you know, think about, if they're asking me about this scenario, this is the example I'm going to use, and then practice your example, right? You want to make sure that you have all 4 points of that STAR that you can give in your answer. And as far as not being nervous and going, everybody's got butterflies in their stomach every time they interview, right? I do it for a living, and I still often get butterflies in my stomach if I have to go out and interview for something. You want to go in with confidence, and that those butterflies are good because that means that you're passionate about this, you're excited about it, and you want it. But always remember, especially these days, it is a candidate market. They need you more than you need them. And if you go in with that attitude that I am confident in what I do, I know what I bring to the table. And as Mika Brzezinski will tell you every time, know your value, right? As a woman, we have to know our value. We are constantly undervalued and underpaid for our work. And you have to go in and know your value and know that if this company doesn't value what you're bringing to the table, do you really want to work for them, right? You also want to make sure that you know what that company's core values are when you go to interview, because it may sound like this is the absolute job I want. The job description's perfect. And you might be all nervous about getting this job without thinking, have I thought about what I want to ask them, right? Like, because you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So you need to make sure they're a good fit for you. And I think if you go in with the mindset that you're interviewing them just as much, now you're on even playing field. You've just evened out the field so that you're not as nervous anymore, because you're now doing the same thing to them that they're doing to you. You're asking questions, you're digging for information, you're making sure it's a good fit. And I'll be honest, when I'm interviewing candidates, I actually come right out and ask them, hey, I understand you're interviewing me just as much as I'm interviewing you. What are you looking for in your next position and next employer? Because that, I think often, and I do that towards the beginning of my interviews, after I've gone through, have you ever worked for us? What's your compensation requirements? What's your educational background? All this basics. I want to know before I get into the behavioral questions and all of that, what are you looking for? Because that sets them at ease. It lets them know I understand they're interviewing me too. And I'm treating them as an equal. We're on equal playing field. And I think that helps to calm those nerves. So always make sure you've got a few good questions prepared. And I know I can't tell you how much of a pet peeve of mine it is that you get to an end of an interview and you say, do you have any questions for me? No, I think you covered it all.
Make sure there's a question to hand.
Make sure there's a question, walk in. Right? So look at their website, look at the job description, have something specific about the role that you can ask. And a lot of times they might cover it. Like I do a really good job of giving them all the details that they might want to ask, but I'm still looking for what question do they have? And you can come up with questions about, so tell me, what do you love about your organization, right? They probably haven't given you that yet. Or what keeps you, if they've been there a long time, because you've looked them up, you've done your research, you see on LinkedIn how long they've been there. And if it's a short period of time, what attracted you to make the switch over to company XYZ? If they've been there a long time, what is it that keeps you there in the constantly changing world that we're in? Most people aren't staying in jobs for as long as you've been there. What is it that's kept you there this long? So there's always questions that you can ask. You can ask them, I saw on your website, one of your core values is, creating positive change in the community. Can you give me an example of something that you've personally participated in that you felt was creating positive change in the community? What volunteer organizations do you partner with? You can always find something to ask.
And with JLP, there's so many opportunities that we can pull from and opportunities available for you. Ladies, also, I wish we had, go ahead.
I was going to say, also look to see whoever you're interviewing with, are they connected to a JLP person, and have they been a junior league member in another league? Because I have used that many times. Oh, I saw you were in the junior league of Boston. Do you know Pamela Lynch? She was president at the same time as me, or, what was your focus area in the junior league? Make that personal connection because they will remember you.
And you can network. That's all good. Ladies, I wish we had another hour with you. There's so many great specific hands-on things that you've shared that our members can do. I don't know about you. I'm pumped up. I want to go apply for something. But there's just so many great nuggets. And I know this is going to be really helpful, and it's answered so many questions that ladies have had coming into this training. So we are basically at the end. I just want to say a huge thank you to our speakers today. Hilary, Chrissy, Ginny, Liz, and Kathy, thank you for your generosity and sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience. We have had such an amazing subcommittee helping us out, put this program together for you. And I hope that you've all really enjoyed it and that you've got a lot you can take away. Before you go, though, there's going to be an evaluation link here going into the chat. These are just a couple questions that really help us. We are data driven. We are working hard to make sure that the training we provide you fits needs and answers questions that you have. We are here for our members, and we want to make sure the training will help you and help elevate those opportunities for you. See, we worked the name in again. There we are. We hope you've had a really, really productive time with us. Thank you for sharing your mornings with us, and we hope you have a really great rest of your day.